Hello everyone, welcome back to Cryptid Unscripted. Today we're going to look at the Doncaster area, and we're back on the more normal end of the scale for cryptid creatures. We've got big cats, in other words, ordinary flesh and blood creatures, just in an unusual location, in this case Doncaster. Now Doncaster's been a hotbed of sightings of big cats for quite a long time. I'm recording this in 2026, it's at least 10-15 years ago that the report started. There was a particular flurry of interest around 2022. The local paper seemed to get quite obsessed with big cat sightings. There was one that was a bit dubious. One had been seen at a McDonald's drive-thru in the middle of the day, which is, you think, well, no big cat's going to go into such a public area. There was a video with it, and sure enough, it showed a large domestic breed. And I think a lady from North Yorkshire got in touch to say it was her cat that had just gone missing, basically escaped. But most of the reports from 2022, in fact all of the reports apart from that one, and indeed just about all the reports otherwise, have been of the what papers call black panthers. Now before you start shouting at the screen, yeah, black panthers don't exist as a species. It's a generic term for leopards or jaguars that are black in colour rather than the more normal colouring associated with those species. Now there's no evidence at all to suggest that there are jaguars in Britain. That there aren't, basically. Nothing's ever been found of them. So what is being seen when people report black panthers is leopards that are black in colour, melanistic leopards, black leopards, call them what you want. So in the autumn of 2022, I was travelling through the Doncaster area on the train quite a bit, and we'd go through quite a rural area on the route that I travel. And I had a look out. I was travelling kind of dawn time, which is a good time to see big cats. I had a look out the window to see if I could see anything, and I didn't. It's amazing how many things look like a big cat when you're looking for one. You know, deer, logs, bushes, etc. But no, I didn't see anything. I was coming back on the Saturday lunchtime, and I think it was September or October 2022. Broad daylight, about 11:45 in the morning, coming up to midday. And something caught my eye moving at the side of the train. So I looked out the window. I didn't see the head of it. Because it was going behind a hedge, basically. So the first thing I saw was the front shoulder, which was massive. I saw a long body low slung to the ground and a really long tail that came down and curved back up again. And this animal was sandy brown in colour, and I thought, oh, that's a funny looking dog. But it kind of bothered me. There was something not right what I was seeing. So I got home, I got myself settled, made a brew, and I sat looking at photos of dogs on the internet for quite a long time. I didn't find anything that even remotely resembled the thing that I'd seen. So more on a whim than anything else, I looked for pictures of big cats, and I didn't even need to open the thumbnail. I saw what I'd seen halfway down the page of thumbnails, and it was a puma. I thought, wow, you know, obviously everybody's seen black leopards, but I've seen a puma. So I contacted Rick Minter, who runs the excellent Big Cat Conversations podcast and website. He advised that I told a local big cat investigator in the Doncaster area, which I did, and that gentleman went down to the site where I'd seen the puma to ask around. He did invite me down, but unfortunately I was working, I couldn't go with him. And he tentatively approached somebody who had a cottage just near to where I'd seen this puma and asked about big cats, and the guy was like, oh yeah, it comes from the woods across the way there, as if it was the most normal thing in the world to see a puma in the Doncaster area. About a year later, I was going past the same place, and I didn't see a big cat, but I did see two Jack Russell type dogs absolutely flying up the field where I'd seen this puma, chasing after something obviously, but whatever it was had gone through a gap in the hedge at the top end. So I contacted Rick and the local investigator again. The investigator went down to the area, and again he asked around. One of the first people he saw was an old lady who said, oh, thank goodness for that. I said, yeah, I saw a massive black cat down the lane last week, but I didn't dare to tell anybody in case they thought I was going senile. And this was in sort of late 2023. The most recent report from the area is, I think, August 2025. Somebody heard a growl in exactly the same area that I saw this puma. They heard a growl which they looked into on the internet and thought it was a leopard. So there's been a black cat and a puma seen in exactly the same area just outside Doncaster. As always with these videos, I'm not going to reveal exactly where the locations are, because the cats may still be there, and I don't want people with bad intentions going down and trying to harm them. I'm doing this introduction in the studio because I'm going to I'm going to go to 3 locations in the Doncaster area, and I'm going to walk through. The first location is the longest one that I'm going to be there. The other 2 are literally bullet point kind of things. One was seen there and one was seen down there. But the first one is the area that I saw this puma, that the old lady saw a black leopard, and that somebody else has heard a growling. And because it's an active area, I don't want to go through making a lot of noise doing the voiceover for the video. So I'm going to walk through the area, or the first part of it anyway, fairly quietly. I'll show you a few clips as I'm going, but I'm not going to do too much in the way of voiceovers, because I don't want, if anything is there, it to hear me and just run off, basically. I want to have half a chance of seeing something if there is something to see. But just before we go to the actual on-site filming, I'm going to just have a quick look at why Doncaster is such a hotbed of sightings. I'm going to show you on a map what my theories are as to why there's so many. There have been a lot over the years, as I say. I'm just going to try and look at why possibly so many have been seen around the Doncaster area. So there is Doncaster on a map. Now you can see it kind of just ends. A lot of towns and cities kind of transition slowly into the countryside. You know, the buildings become a bit less frequent and then the countryside begins. But Doncaster just tends to end. The River Don goes around 2 sides of it, and it's got quite a big floodplain. And unlike a lot of places where people have just built on the floodplain regardless, the River Don does like to remind people that it's there on a frequent basis by flooding the place. So they've kind of left the floodplain. So those sides of it where the River Don is, should I say, they're not really built on. Across this side you've got all the peat moors, so around Thorn there and coming down through here, around the sort of Finley area and this route and all that kind of area, it's peat moors, so again they're quite marshy and not really suitable for building. And then you've got countryside basically to the south of it as well. And it all links in. You can see there's a lot of nothingness. If you look at the area around, there's a lot of rivers and floodplains and peat moors and things. And there's not a lot of building for quite a long way around it. If I just go, you can see there's not much at all. So it's a very rural area around it. And as I say, the housing does just finish in a lot of cases. I'll show you that when I get on site. There's a bit where you go from a council estate into a forest, more or less instantly. And I will show you that when I'm doing the actual site walk. So I think that's why. It's because there's a lot of people living very close to where the cats are. Obviously the cats are out in the rural bit, but then the rural bit's smack bang next to a housing estate. So there's loads of people in the housing estate that are just a stone's throw from where the cats may be. The other thing about it is that there is the Yorkshire Wildlife Park as well, just off the sort of M18 motorway. Now, there is evidence from other parts of the country that actually where there are zoos and things where there's big cats in captivity, obviously other big cats can hear and smell them from afar, and they're attracted to the area, so they come to the area around the zoo to see if they can get to the big cats there and mate, and obviously they can't get into the zoo, so they go around the periphery of it. And I think that's one of the reasons, because the Yorkshire Wildlife Park does have some big cats. So anyway, that's enough of the introductions. We'll get on site now. As I say, I'll show you a few bits of locations. For the first bit, I won't do a lot of talking. I will do a bit. I'll explain some bits to you. I'll show you the wood as well, where I think the big cats are hanging out, or some of them anyway. There was a report in, I think it was early 2023, in the local paper that residents in 3 local villages had heard a lot of screaming in the night and been kept awake by it. Sounded like a woman in distress, and that does sound like the mating call of a puma. And if you look on the map and triangulate sort of where the villages are, the central point of it is this wood that I'm going to show you as well. So it's highly likely that that wood, which is also the one that was mentioned by the gentleman that the researcher spoke to, is where at least one of these cats is laying up. But anyway, we'll get on site and I'll show you a few bits and pieces, so I'll see you on site. So here we are on location. I've just got off the train literally a minute or 2 ago, and the first location is here. This is where the growl was heard, somewhere in here. The young man was rabbiting in this area and he heard a growl from the undergrowth. Now about 100 yards behind me is where I saw the puma, and I believe, as is often the case seemingly, that the big cats are actually using the railway line, which is just off to the left of this shot, as a corridor, because to get from here to where I saw the Puma without going through a built-up area and crossing the main road, you'd have to go around the big arc through the fields, so the most direct way is along the railway line. And it would also explain how they're getting in and out of the wood, as we'll see at the end of the first bit. So I've got a bit of a walk through a housing estate, and then I'll get to the main part of this first part. So I'll see you in a few moments. So I promised to show how close the housing was to the sort of open areas. So I'm in a council estate at the moment, and now I'm on the edge of the rural area. There's a bit of an open bit, there's some woods beyond. If I turn around, there is the council estate that I was just walking through. So that's what I mean about the houses being really close to the rural bit. Right, there's not much point in being really quiet at the moment because there's a dog walker in front of me, which is not ideal. But hopefully it'll turn off at some point and I'll have the place to myself. I'll do a few shots as I'm going through, and we'll explain a few things, and then I'll see you in a little bit. So there's not much point in being really quiet. I'm going to still try to be a little bit, but there's a lot of people about. Because of where I live and the fact that I don't drive, the earliest I can get to this kind of area is, well, about the time it is now. By the time I've walked round to this location, it's coming up to 7 o'clock in the morning. It's July, it's a Saturday. I thought there wouldn't be many people about on a Saturday, but I was wrong. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot of people wandering about, walking dogs and such like. And there's a couple of ladies with a pushchair coming up as well, making quite a lot of noise. So any self-respecting big cat will probably have done one by now. But you can see the kind of varied habitat that we've got and why it would be extremely suitable for a big cat. But it's like this as well. I mean, I've done this walk before, and this bit gave me the creeps because you've got this tree cover on the right hand side where a big cat, an ambush predator, could sort of lurk and wait for something to go past. Obviously a lot of animals will follow pathways and things at night because it's easier than ploughing your way through the field. So you've got this bit here, the tree cover, as I say, in the path, and you've got open field, so you could jump out, grab whatever you're going to have, and then make your way across and get away from the area, or go back into the trees with it. I don't know why it gave me the creeps last time I came. Obviously there's no evidence of them actually attacking human beings. In fact, quite the opposite. They seem to just want to run off. I've heard stories of ones that have been cornered that have still not attacked. They just waited till there was a gap and gone and run away. They normally avoid humans like the plague. They can hear us coming. They use sort of doof 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 bipedal kind of footsteps, and they know it's a human and just leave us alone. But yeah, as far as I understand it, even where cats are native, the countries they're native in, people are not attacked very often. Sometimes they jump out, and there was an incident in Doncaster where one jumped out and looked at somebody and then ran off again. It tends to be mainly joggers and cyclists who that happens to, that they show themselves to, because there isn't that same noise. Joggers obviously are running, and apex predators in general, big cats included, see running as a sign of prey. Obviously the prey starts to run when it becomes aware of the big cat's presence, and I think they think, oh, something's running, it must be prey, it must be dinner, basically. And with cyclists there isn't that doof 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 footstep sound, is it? It's just the swishing of your tyres or the crackling of them on whatever surface you're on. So they sort of jump out and think, oh, something's coming. They can, you know, smell and hear something, and then they come out and it's a human being. No, I don't want that, and they just run off again. But yeah, hopefully you've got some idea of the kind of varied habitat that there is in this area. Probably ideal for a big cat. Obviously you've got the open fields, you've got the bits of woodland, like I said, the tree lines that you can hide in and wait to ambush anything coming past that you might want to eat. And we're not far off now from the wood where we think, or you know, I think, should I say, that at least one of these cats was laying up. hopeful look across the hedge there, because there was a lot of bird noise. I wondered if something was moving through that was disturbing them, but it appears to be just some crows having a bit of a fallout with each other. So that's almost it for this first part. Where I started from is about probably 2 miles in that direction that I'm looking. As you can see, there is a bit of a wood there, and that's a possibility for one of the places that the cats are laying up. And like I said, they're probably using the railway as a corridor because it's been quite a long walk round. It's about an hour for a human being to do it via the roads and things and the public footpaths and bridleways. If you can just come along the railway line or through the fields next to it, it'll probably be far less than that, a few minutes for a big cat. So yeah. So there's another shot of that first wood, and if I turn round, there's the possibility, the second one that I think, and I do actually fancy that one as the point where they lay up. As I say, they're both in the middle of the 3 villages that were reporting screaming sounds, a bit like a Puma's mating call. The security fencing you can see there is just on this little corner to stop people from going in from the public bridleway. The rest of it's just surrounded by a very low wire fence, and on the railway side as well, the railway line runs down the side of it, which again adds weight to the thing. They might be using the railway as a corridor. But it is a very secluded wood. You go past it on the train, you can see into it, and it is quite dense. And obviously, because it's fenced off, nobody goes into it. So I've just crossed the railway. You can see what I mean. There's not much of a fence at all. There is a fence there, but it's a small wire one, quite low, and it wouldn't be much of an obstacle for a big cat. And like I said, that woodland that you can see stretching away, it does become quite thick and quite dense a bit further in, and it would probably be ideal. Anyway, that's it for the first part. I'm going to go around to the next location, which isn't far, not much of a walk, and I'll see you down there. So just to prove the closeness again, I'm in a road of some houses, and the next location I'm going to look at is just across the main road there. You can see we haven't come that far at all. There's the wood that I just looked at the end of the first bit. To be fair, I've misremembered it from the last walk. I thought you could see the river, but just over there is the River Don and the Don Navigation Canal that runs next to it. And it was on the banks of the canal that one of the 2022 black cat sightings, the black leopard sightings, was. It was just walking along the canal bank in broad daylight. Now, one thing that's largely been missing from the Doncaster area is other cryptids. Often where there's a lot of big cats, you get more paranormal things as well. But there was one example in the same kind of area of a dogman being reported back in, I think it was 2017. Now, as I say, normally where you get a lot of big cats, you tend to get a lot of other cryptids as well, but that seems to be the only report from the area that I can find. And again, that would have been just over there, maybe about a mile or so in that direction. Just a bonus bit of info, if you can hear me for the traffic noise. Along the road ahead of me there, probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles up, on about the third roundabout along, I did see a cat one night, not a big cat, or not, well, I don't think it was anyway. I was in a taxi. We often get taxied with work from one place to another. I was going from Doncaster back towards Grimsby. Just after midnight one night, the roundabout in question, the main road continues straight across it, so second exit. The first exit is a little minor lane, and just in the mouth of that lane was a cat on the middle of the road eating some roadkill. Now, I think it was a domestic, or a large domestic. It was jet black, I could see that, even in the darkness because of the lights of the roundabout. But it didn't quite sit right, just where it was and what it was eating and things. And the thought did cross my mind, was it a young one, you know, a kit or a cub of a bigger cat? Probably not, but I just thought I'd mention it. So this is the final location for the morning. It's not actually a location that big cat's been seen in, but it probably is one where there has been one. This is a wood that's part of a continuous series of woods and plantations that go off to the south, and in the next wood along and the plantation beyond that, there have been sightings of big cats. Now obviously a big cat's not going to go through the trees and then come to a particular point and go, oh, that's the start of so-and-so wood, I won't go in there. So the chances are that they have been in here, it's just nobody's actually reported them. But yeah, wood just along from here was one of the 2022 sightings. There is a question as to why so many sightings took place in daylight in that year. It's possible that the cats had got into a more relaxed frame of mind after the lockdowns of 2020 and 2021, where there weren't so many people about. It does seem generally in Britain that there's more daytime sightings than you would expect. A lot of people think that, you know, these cats are largely nocturnal, which they are, but there are more daylight sightings in the UK than you would probably expect there to be. There's also the possibility that all of these sightings of the black cat were the same cat. the sightings, I think the furthest one away was about 7 or 8 miles away from Doncaster, but most of them were in a pretty small area, a lot of which I've covered this morning. It's taken me over 2 hours to walk around it because I've had to go on public roads and things, but for a big cat who can, walk through the fields and things, it would probably take a few minutes, if that. So it probably was the same animal, and it might have been an older one. They often tend to hunt via hearing when they're younger. They sort of lie in wait, as I showed you earlier on, in like a bit of a tree-lined bits and bushes where they can sort of jump out on things, and they use the hearing to gauge if anything's coming and how close it is, so they know when to pounce. But as they get older, a bit like humans, they do sometimes tend to lose the hearing, and when that happens they have to go and hunt in daylight because they can't hear the prey coming. They've got to use their eyesight instead. But anyway, we're almost out of the wood now. There is a jogger coming, so I'm not going to say anything because they're going to be making enough noise to frighten anything else away. So as always, thank you for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next programme that I make. Goodbye for now.